Let's be real. In education today, we're drowning in data. Seriously. Student clicks, test scores, engagement metrics, it's coming at us from all sides. But is all that information actually leading to better teaching? That is the big question we're going to tackle. Okay, let's dive right in.
So here's the dilemma, and it's one that pretty much every modern educator is facing. We have more data than ever before pouring in from our learning management systems and just a ton of digital tools. But is all this information really giving us clearer insights, or is it just creating more noise, making the already incredibly complex job of teaching even harder?
And that brings us right to the heart of the problem, this massive data overload that actually creates an insight deficit. It's a weird paradox, isn't it? We're swimming in all these numbers, but at the same time, we're kind of starving for the actual, actionable wisdom we need to really help our students thrive.
For the last 20 years or so, the main solution people have pointed to is something called data-driven decision-making, or DDDM for short. Now, the concept itself was pretty revolutionary. Let's shift away from relying only on our gut feelings and start using real, hard evidence to shape how we teach.
But here's the thing. As powerful as that idea is, those original frameworks are, well, they're starting to show their age. They just weren't built to handle the kind of massive, sudden disruptions we're dealing with now. Things like a global pandemic that forces everyone online overnight, or the absolute explosion of generative AI.
So what did that original playbook even look like? Let's take a quick look and break down the model that really shaped how we've used data in education for almost a whole generation.
It really took off in the early 2000s, right alongside the whole big data movement. But the key moment, the one that really set the standard, came in 2006 with this hugely influential framework. Fast forward to today, though, and the main critique is that it focused almost entirely on data that came from technology, and that means it was missing a huge part of the human story.
At its heart, the whole point was to take raw data from digital tools, stuff like login times and quiz scores, and magically transform it into useful knowledge for teachers. It was a fantastic idea for sure, but as we're now realizing, that's only one piece of a much, much larger and more complicated puzzle.
We can really boil this whole shift down to a simple idea. The old way, it was all about just the clicks, basically what were students doing on their screens. The new, more complete approach we're exploring is about clicks, context, and craft. It still values the data, of course, but it integrates the real-world context of our students and the professional craft of teaching.
So, how do we build that more complete picture? Well, this brings us to the really exciting part. An updated framework designed not for some theoretical lab, but for the messy, dynamic reality of today's classrooms.
This new framework really stands on three equally important pillars. First step is pedagogical input. This is the why behind our teaching, the learning goals, the course design, and the instructor's own expertise and reflections. Second, you have contextual input. This is the real world, who our students are, what's going on in their lives, and what external forces are affecting them. And finally, of course, there's the tech tools input, which is the what that's happening online, from LMS data to direct student feedback.
And let's be super clear here. This is not about throwing the old model out the window. Not at all. Think of it as a critical upgrade. It takes these different streams of evidence and integrates them so educators can make smarter, more responsive, and truly human-centered decisions. Okay, so theory is one thing, but how does this actually work in a real classroom? Let's look at the framework in action. We're going to check out a fascinating 5-year study of a university course where students were actually contributing to Wikipedia and Wikidata.
The framework's first major test came from a challenge none of us are ever going to forget: the COVID-19 pandemic, and that sudden, chaotic shift to remote teaching.
And right here, you can see exactly how those three types of data came together to drive a really important decision. The contextual data was crystal clear. Students were feeling incredibly stressed and isolated. The pedagogical goal was to build a sense of community. And the tech tool data, like a flood of late-night emails, showed a desperate need for faster support. So what happened? An individual assignment was completely redesigned for group collaboration, and a simple WhatsApp group was created for instant communication. So responsive, so holistic.
The next challenge was another massive disruption, but this time it was a technological one: the sudden, world-changing arrival of generative AI tools like ChatGPT.
And this is just a perfect example of the framework's proactive strength. The contextual data showed that AI was fundamentally changing how knowledge gets created. The pedagogical insight was that students now needed critical AI literacy skills, not just an outright ban. And the tech tools, like monitoring their public Wikipedia edits, allowed the instructor to ensure academic integrity. So instead of reacting with fear, they adapted. They integrated AI right into the course to teach both its uses and its limits.
So, what was the result of all this adaptive, data-informed teaching? Well, get this. Over 5 years, the work these students created and improved was viewed by the public 19.4 million times. Wow. That's not just a grade on a report card, that is a massive, tangible, real-world impact.
And the improvements weren't just external. The student experience improved measurably too. Just look at this chart. Student feedback on course organization climbed from an already impressive 4.5 out of 5 to a near-perfect 4.9 by the final year. Now that is what iterative, informed change looks like.
Which brings us to our final section, data-powered, human-centered teaching. This is really the core idea, the thing that ties everything we've been talking about together.
Ultimately, this isn't about algorithms taking over the classroom. The future of data in education is not about replacing a teacher's professional judgment and intuition, but about augmenting it, giving them better tools to make their expertise even more powerful. See, when you combine the why of pedagogy, the real world of context, and the what of technology data, you create an educational approach that's more resilient, more adaptive, and, this might sound a little counterintuitive, far more human because it responds to the complete student experience.
Now, this framework offers a really great path forward for individual educators, but it leaves us with a much bigger question to ponder. How do we build an entire education system that trusts both the power of data and the irreplaceable craft of its teachers? That's the challenge ahead.